Welcome in, everybody. It's the Royal Ascot edition of It's Official. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel from Xpressbet. We do this show every Tuesday. This is one of the biggest Tuesdays on the calendar. You can think of the Melbourne Cup is on a Tuesday. The kickoff, the Royal Ascot on a Tuesday, though, Jeff. This is a fun weekday approach for us this week.
Yeah, it was nice for them to do it in the morning so we could use it as content for our show. Sometimes we have to scrap a little bit to find out to find something worthwhile talking about, but not today. I mean, opening day at Royal Ascot, and we had some great racing. A lot of American interest with Wesley Ward having a couple of starters and a few others in there that caught our eye, and several that could conceivably be candidates to come over here and run in the Breeders' Cup based on their abilities and their connections, which they do it. I always like to see Aidan O'Brien win because he's going to bring about 10 or 15 or whatever. Yeah. So it gives an added interest to the results, and we watched it this morning and saw some really good racing.
So we'll look back at that. We'll look at a couple other big topics, including some Breeders' Cup preps. It's winning your in time. And we've seen some of those kind of races, including at Royal Ascot today. So let's go to the big board. Our first of 5 topics this week is the Royal Ascot Rewind. And in the very first race of the meeting Tuesday morning in the Queen Anne, all eyes were on Modern Games in terms of Breeders' Cup intrigue, but he didn't have it today. It was Triple Time pulling the upset.
Down to the final quarter mile, light infantry to Inspiral. Triple Time, Modern Games having to pick up a little bit now. But Triple Time at big odds in the yellow will lead him at the Queen out the furlong pole. But here's Inspiral and Frankie now. Modern Games, light infantry are chinned it behind those. They're heading down with a half furlong to go. Inspiral, red, white and blue. Triple Time in the yellow. It'll be between the pair. They're very close as they race towards the line. Triple Time and Neil Callan to Inspire a Light Infantry, Modern Games, Angel Blur and Berkshire Shadow.
An upset there, and the sentimental pick probably Inspiral with Frankie Dettori making his final appearance at Royal Ascot of his career. He had it until the final couple jumps, but it was the long shot at 34-1. Triple Time, Jeff, off a long layoff, 262 days on the sideline and back in a bang.
He's a good colt. He's a Frankel colt, 4 years of age. Had good form coming in. Maybe not proven at this level, or certainly not proven at this level. But he was a listed stakes winner on 2 occasions last year as a 3-year-old, and then was unplaced in a race at Longchamp on Arc Day. But since then, he's obviously grown up a little bit. This was a legitimate win. The only thing that you'd have to, put a question mark around it was the fact that the ground was what I would call sticky, if not heavy or wet or whatever, however else you want to determine it. It was the second slowest edition of this race in the last 20 years. I think only Tepin, the American mare who went over there a few years back and won it on soft ground, was slower, but he certainly showed a lot of quality. It's good to see Inspiral bounce back. She'd been kind of up and down last year, right. Came back and for her first start since Champions Day last year and ran very well. And I'm still trying to figure out, and I haven't figured them out, and maybe you can help me, with Modern Games. I'm not trusting, I'm not doubting his talent. I'm not doubting his quality, his class. He's won 8 out of 15. That's pretty good percentage. But he's been known to kind of not show up sometimes, too. And he had a great trip. He broke running, and he just was flat as a pancake. So, and then they made mention on the telecast that I was watching that Charlie Appleby's runners are just not firing. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not what they used to be or have been. So maybe that's something to look forward to down the road.
Modern Games has made 3 trips to North America already, 4 trips to North America already, 2 Breeders' Cups bids, a Woodbine race, a Woodbine mile, and this spring for Keeneland. So maybe 4 cross-Atlantic trips have kind of taken a little bit of a toll. Maybe he's not quite as sharp. He might be old school too. Jeff, you and I are old enough to remember when horses ran in and out of form, they just don't fire like they do now, Great horses of the past, of the 70s, the 80s, 90s, got beat a lot. And then they come back and round into form and run off a couple and then kind of lose their edge again. So we don't see that too much in today's modern training. Maybe he's a little bit old school in that regard. But Modern Games, you expect him back in Southern California, top of ground runner. He certainly showed it at Del Mar 2 years ago in the Breeders' Cup when he was a 2-year-old. So I would expect Modern Games to be back and ready to go for the Breeders' Cup if all things go well. This was a Breeders' Cup Win and You're In. Triple Time, the 34-1 upset winner, is nominated to the Breeders' Cup. I went through the Breeders' Cup database and checked on all these horses. So he's eligible to accept that Win and You're In bid and all the plaudits that go with it. So maybe we will see the Queen Anne winner Triple Time to the U.S. Not connections that we're typically used to seeing shipping over here, though.
No. But one thing I want to mention, we didn't show it, but you can go back and watch it on YouTube. Triple Time was rank and pulling, and it looked to me like he was just too fresh. And I mean, the opening quarter, you'd figure, well, he's a candidate to spit out the bit and run last, but he kept going. That was an amazing performance by, again, a young son of Frankel who just might be a lot better than the 30-1 shot odds that was assigned to him. Again, low-profile connections, but man, that's a good colt. He earned it. I'd kind of follow him throughout the summer and in the fall for sure.
Second feature on the card on Tuesday at Royal Ascot was the Coventry Stakes, Group 2 here for the 2-year-old sprinters. River Tiber was the 6-5 favorite against 21 rivals. I don't know if you ever want to take 6-5 in a 22-horse field, but he made 6-5 pay off. Let's take a look back.
Give me the Beat Boys inside the 2 over on the far side. The near side is Bucanero Fuerte. And as they come now inside the last furlong, give me the Beat Boys and River Tiber. Army Ethos towards the centre of the track. Give me the Beat Boys with a narrow lead to River Tiber. Then Army Ethos, the near side. Give me the Beat Boys. The near side is Army Ethos. They run close to the finish here. And as they do so, River Tiber has got to the front on the far side. The near side, Army Ethos. River Tiber to Army Ethos in the Coventry.
So it's River Tiber now 3 for 3 and one of the top young horses among Aidan O'Brien's brigade. He said he's had some others that have disappointed, I saw in an interview, but this one has delivered to this point. River Tiber, the winner here, the American story, was Fandom, the horse who broke its maiden at Keeneland. Led for a little bit and then dropped back to about 11th in the field. So just threw the anchor out there for Wesley Ward.
I was really disappointed in Fandom. I had gone back and watched that Keeneland win, and I thought it was a real win. I mean, you never know who they're beating and things like that, but popped the gate, opened up, switched off midway, rebroke, one in hand. He looked like a colt that could transfer that form easily over there, but he was like 10-12-1. Usually those kind of Wesley Ward horses, if they're all that, get more play than that, even in a big field. Sure. And you mentioned about the heavy favoritism for River Tiber. It's an Aidan O'Brien colt, Tabor in that group. And you'd think that he would be the kind of horse that, I mean, obviously they're thinking guineas and stuff like that now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him over here, unless they got 4 or 5 others that they can substitute for him. But when they have a big field like this, Jeremy, I'm more impressed with the announcer. Not that he can nail every horse and remember all of their names. That to me is pretty impressive,
Well, but it's straight, you don't even get a chance to let them sort themselves out.
But Phantom faded badly. It was a disappointing effort for a colt that certainly I thought was worth a gamble at that price. And you could see midway he was off the bridle and done. But a very good win for River Tiber, and we'll just see how aggressive Aiden's going to get with him. And maybe he's the kind of colt that they want to try to get it while they can as a 2-year-old, or maybe they think he's better than that. So we'll see.
The very next race on the card, the King's Stand for top older sprinters. We saw the same thing. The Wesley Ward American entrant in this race popped, got on top, and then just threw the anchor out. It was a similar trip for Twilight Gleaming as it was in the previous race for Fandom. Let's go back and take a look at somewhat controversial finish in the King's Stand Stakes, where Brad Sell is going to get the victory.
At this stage as well, 2 furlongs to go, Highfield Princess and Brad Sell, Coolangatta, and with those as well on the far side is Twilight Gleaming. Cannonball leads the near side with Vadream and Dramatized. As now Brad Sell, Holly Dawn has gone on. In second position is Highfield Princess, who's gaining though. Brad Sell has the lead. Highfield Princess, the red and yellows, a half-length behind in second place, but Brad Sell and Holly Dawn have won the King's Stand. To Highfield Princess and Annette and Twilight Cause, an equilateral Russell and Marshman, and then came down.
So, Jeff, it was a tight finish at the end as we take a look at the head-on Highland Princess and Brad Sell. Holly Doyle's going to go left-handed in the red and white striped cap and try to keep off of the pursuer on the outside here. But to no avail, they do drift out, they do get in the path, and they do make contact, but too close to the wire to really impact the order of finish there.
And also the margin was almost a length. If it had been a neck or a half length or closer than that, they certainly could have made a change without being yelled at. But I'm glad they left it up. I thought Brad Sell was the best. I mean, you have to protect the punters, and if they bet on Brad Sell, you had the best horse. I think the connections. It's too much of a valuable race to take away. To me, it clearly showed that whatever impact there may have been, the major impact was after the wire. And before that, it looked to me like Brad Sell had maintained his lead. Here's a colt that only run. This was his sixth career start.
Yep.
So he beat some seasoned, tough, older sprinters, including Highfield Princess, who actually was my top selection in the Breeders' Cup last year. This was her 33rd career start. So we may have an up-and-comer here. Big price here on an English-bred colt. Archie Watson, the trainer. I'd love to see him come down at Santa Anita, run 6.5 down the hill. I think for the Breeders' Cup sprint, I think he could be effective. Given the fact that he's just a 3-year-old. I mean, I know he's getting weight and all that, but still not that much. That was impressive to me.
Yeah, this is definitely a horse for course look, right? Because last year won the Coventry Stakes on the same opening day card. Doesn't mind the pomp and circumstance. Certainly likes the course there at Royal Ascot. So we will see. Will the Breeders' Cup win and you're in invitation be accepted? This was, again, another automatic qualifier to the Breeders' Cup. Brad Sell, we'll see, perhaps, towards the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. As far as the older horses go on the card, or the 3-year-olds, I should say, at 1.25 miles, the feature on Tuesday at Royal Ascot was the St. James's Palace Stakes. Let's see him over the classic 1.25 mile trip. And who gets home first? Well, it's Aidan O'Brien again.
Side. Paddington, the blue and orange, is now being asked to deliver a challenge, but Chaldean giving generously inside the 2 has seen off Indestructible, but here comes Paddington bearing down. The 2 Guineas winners collide. Paddington overtakes Chaldean, and Paddington takes the lead and goes away. Chaldean in second, Sharon is running on in third, but Paddington quite decisively has gone 2.5 lengths clear of Chaldean, and Paddington has done nothing but improve. The Irish Guineas winner comes right away to follow up in the St. James's Palace. Paddington the winner, second home Chaldean, Charin ran on, and then Isaac Shelby in fourth.
2 favorites, the Irish and the English Guineas winners, run 1-2. They both delivered. Jeff, this seems to be the performance of the day. I was really impressed by Paddington in this spot.
Yeah, he got beat first time out. That was last year at Royal Ascot, or Ascot, not Royal Ascot, and he hasn't lost since. Won a maiden, won a handicap. He won a listed stakes. He won a Group 1. Of course, that's the Irish 2,000 Guineas. But he was not expected to beat Chaldean, the English Guineas winners. But he went by him like he was standing still. And again, I was glad to see it. Another one of these Aidan O'Brien colts, Tabor and Smith in that group. And if they're Breeders' Cup participants, and I'd love to see this colt. Now, the way he won this race, obviously you'd think that he would run farther. He's obviously a top-class miler, but the way he swept on by and accelerated, you'd have to think that the farther the better, or at least he can go a middle distance, maybe up to 1.25 miles. So I'm glad to see this. I think that was a legitimate race, and right now, working on the win streak 5 in a row, he could be the real deal. So Paddington wins the St. James's Palace.
And we've seen the winner of this race come to the Breeders' Cup Mile in recent years. In 2019, Without Parole, 2020, Circus Maximus. And you go back into your greats of the Breeders' Cup Mile and the great Europeans that have come over. Giants Causeway won this race, ended up here in the Breeders' Cup, Rock of Gibraltar. So there's no stuffiness like that the St. James Palace winner is just going to stay in Europe. These horses have traveled towards the Breeders' Cup in the past, and we will look forward, hopefully, to seeing them again this year. Now, that's the Tuesday wrap. Let's look ahead to Wednesday in Jolly Old with the prelude preview, if you will, for the Royal Ascot races on Wednesday. Big races include the Windsor Castle, the Prince of Wales, and the Queen Mary. We're going to start off with the Queen Mary. This is a 2-year-old race where we've got a couple of American interests in here. Let's go back and take a look at the video. An automatic qualifier for this race was Crimson Advocate, winning the Royal Palm at Gulfstream Park for trainer George Weaver.
1 and 4 for the opening quarter. They're at the top of the stretch. It's Crimson Advocate in front. Ocean Mermaid is second. These two working clear of the others. Kiss at the rail. The Myth down the center. Final 1/8 of a mile. Crimson Advocate still finding here. Edwin Gonzalez for George Weaver. Here's a stake sweep for George Weaver. Here's Crimson Advocate in front. Ocean.
So beat a Wesley Ward trainee in there that was heavily favored. Different ball game going here. It's going to be a much tougher test. But your thoughts as George Weaver sends over the winner from Gulfstream?
Well, I was impressed with that win, but I don't know if that translates or not. I mean, it was a fast race, 56-1 on very firm ground. She popped the gate. She showed good speed and then was never threatened. Daughter of Nyquist and out of Ameriby Proud Citizen. That's American breeding top and bottom. And Johnny V will ride for George Weaver. I'd like to see her run well, but there's 28 horses in this race. I defy anybody to be able to correctly categorize or quantify 28 horses in a race. Right. Even if you had all the videos, you'd still, okay, apples and oranges. I don't know. I think, but this was a win and you're in. If they're going to pay your way and let you run, you run. What's the difference? Right. You know, so she's there. And it'll be very interesting to see. I mean, I really liked her going into that race at Gulfstream. Gave her out as the best play, and was impressed with her. And she ran faster than the Colts. So I think Crimson Advocate should run well. But it's a good gauge here because Wesley's horse, who I thought would be very competitive today, was not. So I don't know what our American 2-year-olds will do. But it'll be very interesting to see how she performs in a race in which there's nothing but question marks. And you've got one that Tom Morley's got over there as well that was a maiden winner at Belmont.
Yeah, her name is Kinana. Doesn't look like the way it's spelled, but according to John Embrial, she can run all right. Let's go back and take a look at the win at Belmont last out for Kinana.
And it is Kinana, handridden here by Javier Castellano, holding the lead here. The challenge on the outside now from Sam's Treasure. Marco T is in third. It is Kinana with the lead. Sam's Treasure chasing in second. It will be Kinana to win first time out, and she did it in front-running fashion.
Jeff, any preference between those two Americans that we saw on video there? The horse Crimson Advocate from Florida or Kinana out of New York? There's just 28 of them there, so I'm going to give you the easy question. Which one of those two do you like?
Thank you. Of the two, I prefer Crimson Advocate. She's got a prior run. She's a little bit more experienced, a little quicker, I think, and maybe even better. And I'm just looking at the workouts she's had since that race at Saratoga. Looks like she's really doing well. And so anyway, I put her on top. Well, I put her on top of the other American, but you know, the rest of these, there's so many of these horses that have won their only starts. They come from big barns. You can't, you know, the traditional handicapping that maybe you and I would use, like time and fractions and whatever.
Right.
Throw it out the window. It means nothing.
Right.
You know? So it's just you sit back and watch and see. You know, see what happens. It's a great race to watch. And again, I'm going to be very admiring of the announcer who has 28 names to remember in this race alone. And they're all over the place. You can't even follow them because just because they're number 5 doesn't mean they're breaking from number 5. They could be
right. They split off in groups and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. You know? So, I don't know. Great job, guys, over there. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure that many of these will eventually find their way to the States, and then we'll follow them when they get there.
Then the Wednesday feature race is the Prince of Wales' Stakes, Group 1 in there. And good day for Aidan O'Brien and the Coolmore boys today at Royal Ascot on opening day Tuesday. They'll look to continue that with Luxembourg, who's also coming off a victory last time out.
As they race past the 2, and it's Luxembourg, the leader from Pisbadil. Baybridge has got the break in between those 2 leaders, and then Lafayette and Travance is next. Vedini is last, but it's Luxembourg racing inside the final furlong. Here's Baybridge on the outside. It's these 2, 150 yards to go, and it's Luxembourg on the far side, bursting back into life, and the Tattersall's Gold Cup wins for Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien. Baybridge second, pull well clear of Pisbadil.
Bridge is back for another crack at the Prince of Wales is against Luxembourg. But, Jeff, watching that, I get the feeling they could have went around again, and the winner still had something left. I would have to think Luxembourg, if he runs as well as he did in Ireland, is going to transfer that same dominance over Baybridge, or same advantage, I should say, not dominance. But I'd be surprised if Baybridge could turn the trick on him this time.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, Luxembourg was a horse. He was like 9-2 in the ARC last year. He didn't run that great. He was 20 horses in the race. But if you're 9-2 in the 20-runner ARC race, that tells me what people who know these horses over there thought of his chances. He didn't run well, but he's back in winning form. And if he were to win this race at 1.25 miles again, I wonder if Aidan O'Brien might, look ahead maybe to the Classic or something. Why not?
Right.
I mean, I would love to be able to see a colt like this, Son of Camelot. He's now won 7 out of 10 time form ratings. He earned a 128 time form rating in this race that we just saw, and that is giant. Now I don't know, it's a career top, but he'd had a 125 time form rating in a previous win in a champion stakes. So I mean, that's when he's on his game, that is a really, really good colt, and one that we'd love to see him over here in the fall in some form or another.
Always that rivalry, Coolmore and Godolphin, and we get to see it replayed over and over throughout the course of the week here at Royal Ascot. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, that we do have an American runner in the Prince of Wales' stakes. It's Classic Causeway. Here in the U.S., there's this unwritten rule that a morning line maker in a big stakes race doesn't disrespect somebody and make them more than like 30-1.
Right.
The British bookmakers could care less about your feelings. 100-1 and up on Classic Causeway to win the Prince of Wales' stakes. And Jeff, with the pari-mutuel, who knows what he'll go? It's not that deep of a field in terms of numbers, but pari-mutuel betting might be lower than his realistic chance of winning this.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's 99-1. Last I checked, the bookmakers had him 125-1. So, hey, if you're going to bet on Classic Causeway, see me first, okay? Come over here. I have absolutely no idea what he's doing there. I mean, I don't know. It's a long way to go to get your head handed to you. That's all,
That's true, but you do have a Grade 1 winner. This horse won the Belmont Invitational Derby. The owners are eccentric. We know that already. The horse with Brian Lynch that got transferred to Kenny McPeak during the 3-year-old season. There was always, a little bit of kookiness going on. Like kind of the aspirational mentality of the owner. So. Look, you got a horse, you're good enough to get in a Grade 1 in the U.S., go take a shot. Who cares if you run last? I mean, as long as the horse comes back healthy. But wear the top hat, press your pants, make the bow tie tight, and have a good time. I don't have a problem with it. It's a Grade 1 winner, right? It's not Rick's Natural Star trying to go show up in a spot. So do I think he has any chance? No, he has no chance at all in my handicap estimation, and the bookmakers certainly don't disagree with that.
Right. Okay.
Let's go to our next topic as we get on the. Yeah, good luck to him is the best that we can do. Like I said, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention him, but I don't think we want to include.
No, I'm glad you did.
Let's go to our Breeders' Cup tracker here as we take a look at some of the horses stateside over the past few days and past week that have made their name. We knew about Goodnight Olive from her championship season last year, winning the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. What we weren't sure of was after her Keeneland race that was just so and her loss at Churchill is she in her 2022 form this year? I don't know if we got the answer or not, but let's go back and take a look at the Bed of Roses from last weekend at Belmont.
Goodnight Olive is in behind horses. Caramel Swirl is on the outside, and then Dr. B, the half mile in 46 seconds. On the outside, here's Caramel Swirl up to challenge Wicked Halo. Goodnight Olive is driving in third with less than 1/8 of a mile to the finish. Here comes Goodnight Olive up to challenge Caramel Swirl and Wicked Halo. The three of them will battle it out to the finish, and it is Goodnight Olive by a head. Goodnight Olive back to the winner's circle, and Rod Ortiz Jr. has a 5-win Saturday.
Better Saturday than Tuesday for Irad Ortiz, to put a little news top on that. He was off his mounts today with food poisoning, so hopefully he gets well and can shake that over in England. But a big weekend for Irad. A good race for Goodnight Olive. When you beat horses like Wicked Halo, it's a positive performance, Jeff, but we're used to seeing her dominant. So where is she?
Well, again, she didn't get a great trip here. She didn't actually get clear until the upper stretch, but she had at least 3/16 of a mile from the top of the when she got clear to roll on by, and she made hard work of it. On the other hand, they did come the last 8th and 12 flat, so I'm not really sure how much faster she could have run anyway. I have to give credit to Wicked Halo and Caramel Swirl as I refer to these as the guys who don't get out of bed in the morning but take all the glory. They're the only leading their horse into the winner's circle. And, I'm not sure where the groom is, but that's something that I can't tell you how many races I've won over the years, and I won my first race in 1975, but I have never taken that away from the groom, the guy who does all the work. I'll stand. I'll get my picture taken. I'll cash the check gladly for sure. But I'm not going to steal anybody else's thunder. If that's what you get, if that's what you want to do, it's your horse. You do what you want. But I think it's pretty silly to me. But anyway, having said that, I think Goodnight Olive still is not quite where she was last year. But she's got some time. I mean, I'm sure we'll see her at Saratoga again. And she had one thing that was a little disturbing though here is that she had the rail this day and she broke like a rocket ship, and she was dead last in an eighth of a mile. She doesn't seem to have that gait quickness. Now she's never been all that fast to begin with. I mean, she really seems to take. I don't know whether she's not loose or whatever the case is, or maybe she's got some issues, but she's needs time to work it out, and you can't. Santa Anita, you can't usually do that. I mean, if you talk about the Breeders' Cup, you better be from start to finish. And so that's something I'm going to watch at Saratoga to see if she can maybe get over her sluggishness the early part, because tough to overcome that against the very best if in fact she's still going to have that issue in the fall.
If her campaign repeats, it was Ballerina Stakes at Saratoga, then on to the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf with no race in between there. So it could be one more race at Saratoga, the Ballerina again, and then off to Santa Anita for a title defense in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint. Monomoy Girls Stakes on Saturday at Ellis Park. It was just an overnight, but it was worth $175,000, and it landed the Kentucky Oaks favorite in Wet Paint and the Winter Book favorite for the Kentucky Oaks in that fast filly, Hoosier Philly last year from Churchill Downs. It was a great renewal of an overnight race, but didn't turn out to be much competition on the track. Hoosier Philly was big time.
Called on for a run now, and Wet Paint begins to wind up now. She's within 4 lengths of front-running Hoosier Philly, who's still on cruise control. Hoosier Philly past the quarter pole, in front by 2. Flamand is second. Champagne calling over the top. Wet Paint rides the rail, but still work to do to get to Hoosier Philly. Hoosier Philly, Edgar Morales hasn't moved. Edgar Morales and Hoosier Philly come down to the 16th pole, and he's a statue in the stirrups. Hoosier Philly back on her game, going to cruise home. Never got out of first gear to take the Monomoy Girl by 4.5 over Wet Paint.
Paul Espinosa from Charlestown on the mic filling in for Travis Stone. I think Travis tweeted out that his brother was getting married, so he was off for the week. And Paul Espinosa, nice job filling in on the mic there from Charlestown. Jeff, let's talk about the winner here. Hoosier Philly first up. This was as good as she's looked in a long time. She started to hint in the Black Eyed Susan that she might be rounding back into form. This looked pretty good to me.
It looked just as good as she looked last year as a 2-year-old when me and a lot of people thought that she was the next whatever. Didn't train on early in this year, ran better obviously last time out, and this race was a stroll in the park. But I mean, the thing is, you go the first quarter all by yourself in 25-1. That's not real. That's never going to happen again. And Wet Paint, who obviously lacks tactical speed and is really a kind of a victim of the lack of pace here in the race flow, and is always going to be that apparently, because everybody who could read a racing form knew that she was going to be loose in the lead, Hoosier Philly, and Tyler Caffley simply couldn't do anything about it. He didn't have the horse. So Hoosier Philly, given her that kind of easy trip, which 9 out of 10 good 3-year-olds or good horses or good anything can take advantage of if you hand him or her the racetrack like that, did what she did last year. Now the next time she runs, when they throw a 22 and change at her, let's see how she reacts. I don't know. Maybe she's just one of these need the lead types, and maybe hook her early. I don't know. So there's still something to prove there. But I thought Wet Paint would have made a little bit more progress since the spring, and apparently she is what she is. Nice filly, but that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, like Brad Cox had some of these really good superstar fillies, and he's had ones that were just kind of good. Bonnie South. She kind of reminds me like a Bonnie South, who's always going to kind of be in it no matter who she runs against, but just not a tremendously gifted horse with a great turn of foot, Wet Paint. So we'll see how her rest of her season unwinds. Now, as for the winner in here, Hoosier Philly, she reminds me a little bit, not as brilliant, but similar form, similar thought process as Serengeti Empress for Tom Amos a couple years ago. Of course, Serengeti Empress won wire to wire in the Kentucky Oaks, but everybody thought, well, maybe not the distance. What would Amos do with her? Well, he ended up turning her back and running in the test stakes at Saratoga, and then went to the cotillion at Parks after that with Serengeti Empress because of, 3-year-old filly for a lot of money. The cotillion's only a mile and a 16th. I don't think we're going to get very far with Hoosier Philly, right? She's not running any farther than a mile and a 16th against good horses. Right. She gave it up at a mile and an eighth in the Black-Eyed Susan. She had an uncontested lead, couldn't get it that day, and got ran down. So I don't think you're looking at the mile and an eighth and the distaffs and the spinsters and races like that with her. Do they cut her back? Do they try to go like Serengeti Empress? Now, at 3, Amos ran Serengeti Empress in the distaff, and that did not work out well.
Right.
At 4, he brought her back, and he cut her back into the filly and mare sprint, and she ran really well. So I'm wondering, these trainers have horses of similar abilities over the course of their career. I'm wondering if Amos might start to think about a filly and mare sprint campaign with her. There's some good races along the way. You could run in the Raven Run at Keeneland for 3-year-old sprint fillies. You could run in the test at Saratoga. There's some opportunities there where you don't have to go far. I'm almost wondering if they don't just cut her back and let her roll.
Well, that's funny because there are two options there. As you want to cut her back, but face a lot more early speed,
right?
Or try to find these other races. I mean, I haven't looked at the schedule, so I don't know.
Yeah.
What's up coming up next month or 6 weeks, but I mean, or try to find races which you think she's going to be the controlling speed and try to win as many as you can that way. It's an interesting question that Tom has to figure out. He's going to have to be realistic one way or the other. I mean, it's nice to think that he could go and maybe win the Alabama. I mean, she'll be in front in that race, but how far can she really run? So, I mean, it's going to be. I'm curious to see what decision, what direction he's going to go with a filly who's obviously can be really, really good given circumstances that are favorable to her, but perhaps not so good if they're not.
And Amos, a Midwest guy, not afraid to run. I mean, people see him on the NYRA broadcast, but as a trainer, he's a Midwest guy through and through, and not afraid to run on the quote-unquote second-level circuits. I mean, Indiana Oaks, Iowa Oaks, Remington Park Oaks, races like that, she could be 3 to 5 in and probably beat those horses going longer, and be in the controlling speed. So do they want to go the regional Oaks route and make a bunch of money that way? Or if they want to be a Breeders' Cup horse with her Hoosier Philly, then I say you try to shorten up. I don't think she beats the best of this division going long. There's just too many good horses and too much competition up front. Right. Let's go next to our 4th topic on the board this week, as we're going to throw it down at Thistledown coming up on Saturday. It is the Ohio Derby, and we talk about that regional path. Larry Ravelli turned down the Belmont Stakes. He turned down the Preakness with the Kentucky Derby runner-up, Two Phils. Now he's got a fresh horse to come back in Ohio. Let's go back to the Kentucky Derby, where Two Phils ran one of the best losing efforts in some time.
Here's Two Phils making a move on the inside, and the two of them hook up, and Jareth Loveberry has taken Two Phils to the front. And Kings Barnes is running in second. Hit Show is circled up on the outside as they come to the top of the stretch, and they're into the stretch, and Two Phils has turned for home on top. Kings Barnes, here's Mage coming strongly down the outside. Angel of Empire is putting in his run, and there's 1 furlong to run. Two Phils on the inside, trying to hold up Mage. Mage has taken the lead here as they come into the final 16th, and it is going to be Mage to win the Kentucky Derby. And then it was Two Phils, Angel of Empire, and a photo. Disarm was 4th.
Two Phils, with an effort like that, Jeff, he is going to romp in the $500,000 9-furlong Ohio Derby. But can he repeat that? That was a strong effort, and taxing efforts like that can take some starch out of a horse.
34% trainer is Larry Ravelli, and I can honestly say that what he's done with Two Phils since the decision and the game plan and the program he's put him under, absolutely flawless as far as I'm concerned, because after running his heart out in the Kentucky Derby, which was his first start since the 3rd week of March, instead of wheeling him back and saying, okay, let's run him back in 2 weeks in the Preakness, or run him in the Belmont, or run him here, or run him there, he says, this colt's got a chance to be a champion, and championships can be won in the late summer, fall. So let's give him some time off, run him in this $500,000 race, which should be his for the asking, even though it's a tougher race maybe than they thought it was going to be. And then use that as a springboard to the Jim Dandy and then the Travers. And that's where he can establish himself as the champion or one of them. And I would say that based on that race and the fact that how well he's been working at Hawthorne, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, we haven't seen any video, but I'm assuming he's doing well. I think there's no reason for me to believe that he won't run back to the Derby, or if nothing else, that the race at Turfway, which was just as spectacular. In that race, he rallied from 7th to win. We know how much pace pressure he had to take in the Derby. So I have him right now, tentatively, my number 1 3-year-old in the country. Now, he still has lots more to prove before that. But right now, if I were to predict, who the last horse standing will be in October and November, I think it's going to be him. So I'm very interested to see how Two Fields runs in the Ohio Derby.
Good field lining up to take him on in Ohio. 8 of them in all. 4 or 5 really with a legitimate chance. The horse highlighted here is the Wood Memorial winner, Lord Miles. He was excluded from the Kentucky Derby with the kerfuffle with trainer Safi Joseph and his horse death leading up to the Kentucky Derby. He wasn't permitted to race in the Derby, so now Lord Miles comes in fresh. This is his victory in the Wood Memorial. Other contenders in the Ohio Derby include the 2-3 finishers that were behind Arcangelo at Belmont in the Peter Pan, those being we had Bishop's Bay and then also Henry Q in there. So a good field lining up. Bishop's Bay, of course, for trainer Brad Cox. And Cox has won this race a couple times in recent years. Tawnyport last year, 2019 with Owendale. So anytime Brad Cox sends one to any of these rich 3-year-old races, they have to be respected. You expect Bishop's Bay to be significant in there. And again, those horses who ran 2-3 in the Peter Pan, they have to feel good about the Belmont Stakes result, right? I mean, that flatters their form, chasing Arcangelo. Jeff, this might be the best Ohio Derby, you say definitely, since the start of the new millennium here, 2000 on. Went back and looked in the history books. 96, you had Skip Away and Victory Speech in a really good top heavy. Maybe back to 87 when it was Lost Code, Home Builder, War, and Demons Be Gone. That was a really good edition of the Ohio Derby. Maybe the best one since then. This is a good group.
It really is, and it just came up the way it is. That you put up by $500,000, they're going to show up usually. And in this case, you've got Bishop's Bay, logical place for him after getting beaten in a photo by the subsequent Belmont winner. Bishop's Bay is a good colt. He's only had 3 starts. He's fast on figs. He's got good tactical speed. He's inside of Two Fields. It'll be interesting to see who gets ahead of who before they hit the clubhouse turn. So he's good. And Lord Miles, I mean, I don't know what he won the Wood. I mean, he can't be a slouch if he wins the Wood, you know. And again, a colt with only 5 starts, and he's by Curlin. I mean, he could be better tomorrow than he was yesterday. I can tell you that, based on pedigree. So, again, a very, very good addition. The best addition I think we've seen in close to 25 years, with long range, short range impact in terms of the 3-year-old class. If Two Fields were to go on and win this race, as I expected he will, then he's got it all in front of him. And if Bishop's Bay shows up and wins, all that does is help Arcangelo. So I don't know. I'm watching for sure. I don't know what the prices are going to be, but it's a race I'm not going to miss.
Timing stretches really nice to the Jim Dandy and Haskell weekend if you come out of here. So this could move a horse big time towards the second half of the year. Jeff, one trivia, I love to look these things up all the time. I cannot find a Kentucky Derby runner-up that's ever won the Ohio Derby. And the Ohio Derby was inaugurated in 1876, just 1 year after the Kentucky Derby. They've been running them. There were some gaps in there, but they've been
like 101-year gap, I think there was, where they decided they weren't going to run it for 100 years or something. And then they figured, someone said, remember that Ohio Derby we ran 101 years ago? Let's do that again. So
let's resuscitate it. I've not found a runner-up that came back and won it, but I did find 2 third-place finishers. Broad Brush, 3rd in the 86 Derby, came back to win the Ohio Derby. 2 years before that, At the Threshold in 1984, 3rd to Swale in the Derby, came back and won the Ohio Derby. So we've had a couple hit the board in the Kentucky Derby and then win the Ohio Derby, but I can't find a runner-up anywhere in the stakes histories. And I went all the way back to 1876. The pages were all yellow. Everything was, kind of written on quills and scrolls, and I still couldn't find it. So we shall see if some history is made with the Derby runner-up winning in the Ohio Derby. Our 5th and final topic as we hit this time of year is the Stars of Tomorrow. We're looking for these hotshot 2-year-olds. We've had a couple to take a look at this week, but one shined much brighter than the rest. His name, Muth.
At the top of the stretch, and it's Muth with an 8-length lead. El Magnifico trying to complete the exacta, but it's a one-horse race. Say hello to Muth, who romps in his debut. Muth, very professional and very fast.
So, Jeff, we were talking about this horse before he debuted, and we talked about it on our Friday handicapping show. What'd you make of that unveiling for Muth?
Well, this is a colt that breezed. And when I say breeze, I mean breeze. I mean, you go to these 2-year-old training sales and they're whipping and driving, and this colt did it like this in hand and went 9-3 over the all-weather at the OBS sale. I mean, that's incredible. That's Usain Bolt as a thoroughbred, I guess. So they gave $2 million for him, even though there was 0 stakes winners in the first 3 generations of this colt's pedigree. But when you breeze 9-3 the way he did it, and the way he moves, he's like a machine. He barely lifts his feet off the ground. He just such an economic stride. He was supposed to win, and he did. Won by 8 3/4 lengths, ran 57 in the 5th, was geared down in the last 16th of a mile. And I was telling some people that if you've got a 2-year-old in California, you've missed your chance, because between now and the end of the year, Bob Baffert's going to have not 1 but 2 humdinging 2-year-olds. And every 2-year-old is Colt or Philly in California. You have no shot. I mean, if you wanted to run your 2-year-old, you better have already done it, because this was just the first of many, and so impressive. I would imagine the game plan would be to run him, obviously point for the Del Mar Futurity, maybe run him once before then, and then maybe either run him in the 2-year-old race there, the prep for the Breeders' Cup, or just go right in the Breeders' Cup and just keep him healthy and sound. And being by Good Magic, I mean, there's no reason why he wouldn't go at least the middle distance. Sure. So there he is, the number 1 2-year-old in the country, probably from now until here, if he ever manages to get himself beat somewhere. Muth is his name, Bob Baffert, and we'll enjoy him out here in California while everybody else kind of dodges all the other Baffert horses, which they can't do.
And the West Coast, the home game for the Breeders' Cup this year, that's always kind of an advantage when you kind of look at the regions, and find out where the horses. Forte won at Keeneland last year before the juvenile, was able to kind of come right back over a track he was familiar with. So that would be an advantage too when we get to the end of the year. What a year for Mage, or Good Magic, I should say, the sire, because he had Mage, of course, the Kentucky Derby winner, Blazing Sevens, the horse who was runner-up in the Preakness, just missed there. And of course, Reincarnate, the Sham winner, also part of this 3-year-old crop this year for Good Magic. So this horse was purchased in March, and you talked about how fast he ran. That was before Good Magic had sired the Kentucky Derby winner. What would he brought $2 million then? How much more would he have brought had that sale been after the Kentucky Derby?
That's exactly what I was thinking, because at the time this colt was bought, Good Magic had shown promise as a stallion, but not like what he has done since then. And now you just add Muth to the equation. And this September at Keeneland, where there's going to be a lot of Good Magics available for purchase, and even before that at Saratoga and the basic Tipton sale. I mean, if you have a good-looking, correct, well-bred Good Magic, just get the printing press out and print your own money, because you've done the right thing. But the way this colt moves, I mean, you remember Good Magic? I did, not that far back. Good colt for sure, but I didn't think he could get a colt this fast. But man, looked like a rocket ship to me, and maybe he'll go on and again, I don't know how far he'll run. Who knows? But right now, I'd like to own him. I can tell you that.
Yeah, Muth is the horse certainly featured this week as our star tomorrow. We also want to give a little shout out to Rhyme Schemes, a horse who won at Ellis Park for Norm Cassie. Second time starter by Ghost Sapper back on Friday last week, June 16th. Go back and take a look at that one. 9.5 length victory, just 2/5 of a second off the track record for 5.5. And they run a lot of 5.5 races for the 2-year-olds on the main at Ellis Park. So that's not a rarely run distance to be 2/5 off the track record. Pretty strong effort. So Rhyme Schemes, one to keep an eye on there for trainer Norm Cassie. Knowing that barn, you probably may see him at Churchill perhaps in that September meet, maybe to Keeneland at the Breeders' Futurity if things all go well. But Rhyme Scheme, second time out, looked awfully good by Ghost Sapper. That's going to wrap up our 5 topics this week, but we're going to have one bonus topic this week, because I discovered an owner, and shame on me for not knowing this guy beforehand, because he's been very successful, but I fell in love with this guy on the broadcast today of Royal Ascot. His name, Rich Richie. I mean, not Richie Rich, but Rich Richie, one of the most wealthy owners. He's an American, former Barclays banker. Now owns a bunch of horses in the UK. But that long flowing mane, Jeff, with the flashy tie, the pink, the pink vest, the top hat with complete replete. The guy's only worth $100 million, so he doesn't need my shout out to affirm him in life. But Rich Richie, my new favorite owner in horse racing, I think.
Yeah, he's a rich guy. He looks like a rich guy. Even if he wasn't a rich guy, you'd think he's a rich guy. But he really is a rich guy.
But he actually is. Rich Richie, he had a winner today with I think Willie Mullins, the trainer, had a victory today at Royal Ascot. So if you got all that going for you and you win at Royal Ascot, it's a good day. It's a good day to be Rich Richie, and hopefully all of us will have a successful week as well, following not only Royal Ascot, but Ohio Derby and all the great racing coming up this weekend. You can play it with Xpressbet and Firstbet. I want to remind you, Wednesday night, it's a big night at Canterbury Park. Of course, the Firstbet app is the official racing app of Canterbury Park. They've got their Minnesota Derby, Canterbury Derby, I should say, the Lady Canterbury Stakes, 4 or 5 stakes races there. We're going to get some picks from Eddie Olczyk up on the website. Eddie's going to give you his hat trick for tomorrow night at Canterbury. And Jeff, you've got some stuff coming up this weekend. Now that Santa Anita's in the rearview mirror, you get to look around the country a little bit.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to doing some national best plays, because rather than just do the one track Santa Anita, I can branch out. And I've already started handicapping, because I love the fact that some of these tracks like Gulfstream and Ellis and a few others, they already have their weekend TPs are up. And I got it's just Tuesday, man. I can watch video. I can really put my mind to it. So yeah, we'll have national best plays on Saturday and Sunday. We'll do that up until Saratoga, and then Del Mar the week following. And I just can't wait for Saratoga and Del Mar, because I am, at least right now, I've had 3 days off, something like that, 2 days off, whatever it is, and I'm already ready to go back and dive in.
There you go.
I thought I could take a couple of weeks off, and no, I'm ready. I am ready to roll.
All right. The battery is charged. We'll be back on Friday when we have our First Call podcast, which previews weekend stakes races. We'll talk Ohio Derby and all the great doings around the country coming up for this weekend. Be sure to join Jeff and I for that. You can stream that on YouTube as well. And we're getting a bigger and bigger audience each week for these podcasts, so we really appreciate that. For people watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and share this with other racing fans around the country. That helps get our support and to get people watching the show and building more momentum for it. So we're really happy with the pickup that we've had since the Triple Crown.
Yeah, and in the comments, if you want to tell us how stupid we are, that's fine. I mean, we're used to it, And tell us who you like and participate, I mean, people read the comments. I'll read the comments, A couple of weeks ago, someone called me an idiot for picking Arcangelo in the Belmont. So maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, But if you got an opinion, share it. It's okay.
All right. On behalf of my idiot partner, Jeff Siegel, who only hit the 7-1 Belmont winner, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great day. We'll be back with you on Friday for the First Call podcast.